If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, Spooktacular number 38, because we've lost count of where we're at. But it's one of those.
I think it's 7, but I won't swear to it.
I think so. It's 7 or 6.
6 should be Thursday. That should be the live. If we did our math right.
Yes. So 6 should be what came out yesterday with the live, and then today we would be 7.
Yes.
But
one more to go, guys.
Really, really interesting one.
One more to go.
We've gotten a lot of reports from folks, and we're going to be sharing those with you guys here shortly. Is there anything noteworthy in the news?
Nah, it's typically the same old news. I mean, you got somebody who saw something and they had to go to the internet and post a picture of it, and where everybody else argues about it being real or not and makes fun of it, things like that. That's typical.
Yeah. The constant merry-go-round.
Yeah, constantly. You got people who think that they know everything on both sides of the fence, one of those kind of things.
Yeah, it's honestly really hard now to filter out news from just viral crap coming off of TikTok that everybody's wanting to talk about.
You have to really be careful about it. You have to be very careful about it, There's a lot of these they don't know what they're doing. Let's just call it what it is. They're making click. They're just getting content for clicks. That's all it is. They don't care if it's true. Doesn't matter. None of that matters whatsoever. And unfortunately, that kind of stuff is what's fueling a lot of the debates that we're seeing in the actual paranormal world. And it's just ludicrous to hear some of this stuff that they're spewing out.
Especially when you see the volume that some of these groups or some of these content creators carry.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of clicks and views and downloads, plus, groups with tens of thousands of people in them, and the dissemination of just
crap. It's crap is what it is.
Yeah,
I'm going to call it for what it is.
Said, the government doesn't need a disinformation campaign anymore. We do that ourselves.
It created that. That's what it was all about, bud. I mean, it's a beautiful plan. It's a brilliant plan, really, if you think about it. It's also why they'll never get rid of TikTok.
Yeah. It's one of these things where if you're really into this community, if you're an active member and and I don't mean like, people who are listeners who indulge in this content and who enjoy this kind of stuff, but I'm talking boots on the ground researchers. It is your Sisyphus constantly pushing the rock uphill.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad part is we're in on the joke. We know that as soon we get the rock so far up the hill, and then something will come out and the rock goes around us. We lose footing and the rock just goes rolling down here. We're like, oh, would you look at that? There it goes again. I gotta go all the way back to the bottom and start pushing.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's the nature of the job, so to speak,
Yeah.
That is how it feels.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and then what really gets you is when someone, of course, comes up with the exact same thing that you were saying 6 to 10 years ago. And it's like, hey, listen to them because, they got a following.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but hey, I get that. That's cool and well. And, validation be validation. It doesn't really matter in that case. But it does get kind of counterproductive on some of these people. I know, we've heard that before from a lot of folks. I mean, we've seen people who just got out of research because of that kind of stuff. So, That's why you can't let it bother you. You can't really care. It's just that simple. I mean, you
Yeah,
you
you
do
at some
do
point
your
you
thing.
literally do just have to laugh and realize that
Yep.
you're in this cycle, and you just have to go with it.
Yep.
It is put your nose to the grind
Yep.
and keep pressing forward.
Absolutely. And I think that that's that's why we're where we're at. That's why we're still here. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, how many years later?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. We lost count of the freaking, spooktaculars, so it doesn't matter. I mean, you think we can get an accurate date on that? I don't know. We've
Right.
been here too long. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, but you got things, and you got people who are out there who they want to help. They want to
Yeah.
help. Genuinely, they want to give you data. They want to help you get the data. And then you've got the people who are detractors. You got detractors, or trolls, as we like to call them, who like to just come on your page and post stupid stuff to get a reaction from you.
Yeah.
And it's sad because that's really what validates some of these people.
Yeah, it is.
And that's not good. If that's all that's validating you is, you need to put down someone's work. That's wonderful. I mean, I hope that makes you feel good, because that's not how this works. The truth of the matter is, we, as well as everyone else who's out there in the field, put a lot of time and effort into this kind of stuff. And for someone to come on a page, for example, and to just blanketly say, "Oh, you're 100% wrong. I saw what you wrote. I saw what you said. That's 100% wrong. It's all demons." That's a true story, by the way. That's a true story. And
Yeah,
yes,
that happened. I
am
remember that.
talking.
Like I
Yes.
was sitting here wondering. I was like, "Where's he? Which real account is this?" And then you brought it up. Yeah, I
Demons.
remember that one.
It's the
That
demons.
was a real gem.
It was. It's not. I don't think it's there anymore, though. I didn't take it down. I wanted to leave it up. I like to leave
and
your.
guys, I'm a
Yeah.
former minister, and I'm still a member of the faith. Okay, like I have no qualms with calling a spade, demon a demon, whatever you want to say. Most of it's not demons. Like 99.9% of it is not demons.
Yeah.
It's just it's a buzzword.
It sells stuff. Man,
It
does
does.
it sell stuff.
Fear sells.
Fear
Yeah.
sells. That's your lesson for this week, people. If you haven't figured it out yet, fear sells. And what better
Like
way to
Halloween.
learn? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What better time to
Exactly.
learn that lesson? Right here it is. Come on, fear sells. Case in point, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot. You remember when we were kids, guys? How much were Halloween decorations?
Oh man, there are $10-15 for good ones.
Oh, you thought you thought that you were living the golden life if you bought one of those $40. I remember I got one, and I was just so happy to get it. It was one of the blow mold cats with the little
Yes.
jack-o'-lantern, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the only blow mold I ever owned, because they had already at that point started going to like $40, and they skyrocketed from there because apparently, they became a vintage collector's item. But more so than that, Halloween props, which we used to make, by the way.
Yeah, you had to
When
make
I-
these things.
You had to make these
couldn't-
things. You can go buy them now. You can go
Yeah.
buy them. And they might as well be out of an effects studio. Some of them.
Yeah.
I've seen props that have literally had retail values of $600 to $800, and that's in local stores. That's not in a specialty place.
Right.
That is crazy. But you know what? If you like to do that, if you can afford to do it, wonderful. God bless you, because, be happy and have fun. I
Yeah,
get that.
absolutely.
But, what we're getting at is fear sells. And, Home Depot is your biggest seller. I will promise
It
you
is.
that, of fear.
Look at these reapers and look at the ghouls, the 12-foot skeletons, and all
12-foot
the other
skeleton. Yeah.
mini skeletons.
Yep, exactly. And it works. I mean, I've
Yeah.
got stuff that I haven't even put out yet. So, it works. What can we say? Fear sells. And it's a great time of year for that, right, guys? So,
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of fear selling, boy, do we have an episode for
Yeah.
you.
This is going to be cool because it's kind of a throwback, right, to a
It is.
really old episode.
It is. It's a throwback all the way to season 1, but
Season 1.
it was one of the most terrifying episodes we'd ever had, because
It was
these
true.
stories literally are scary.
There were true stories in that episode.
They were true stories.
Yeah.
They weren't made up stories. These were real encounters. And again, we have more real encounters of none other than Shadow Beings and Hatman.
And what's great is since then, we've actually got more data on this.
Yeah.
And we can speak to it on the grounds of not just reading stories, but actually on a little more data of actually, talking about what they could be, maybe, may not be.
Yeah.
Because
And
back
field
then,
collections, stuff that
Yeah.
we've collected in the field with equipment
Mhm.
that we can speak to, and it makes a big difference.
Oh, it makes
And
a
it all
huge
started, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, our experience in the field with this stuff all started at the deep end.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some weird stuff at the deep end. I think
Yeah.
we know that. I think
Mhm.
there's some very weird stuff at the deep end. There was an incident that Travis had showed us where someone had a picture of a shadow type thing with red eyes, right? And isn't that technically some of the descriptions of,
It
of
is.
some of these things? They have red eyes, the glowing red eyes, which is
It is
just
indeed.
crazy to me. And you've heard it, like in that episode, I even addressed it. I've seen a shadow being, I've seen a shadow thing. Okay.
Mhm.
By the way, guys, don't say shadow persons. That's registered. We'll get into that later. Oh, so is Hatman, by the way.
Really?
The things you learn. I mean, like I said, this is an
Batman is?
update. This is an update
Oh.
episode. So you guys are going to learn some stuff tonight. And yeah, don't be using that. But we'll talk about that later. But here's the thing. What are they? Well,
Yeah, exactly. Because these, as we discussed previously, these entities have been seen, they've been witnessed since the dawn of mankind.
Yep.
What do we make of that? Because it's literally been there since we've been here.
Yeah, I mean, all the time people see little things out of the corner of their eyes, absence of light. You'll be walking, especially in the forests and, at twilight, at dusk and at dawn too, right before, the sun does come on, that darkest time. There's a weird dark area there. It's called the Twilight Zone, by the way. That's where the term comes from. And it is a very, yeah. It's the darkest that it gets, and it's usually right before the dawn. See, there's a little bit of little bit of poetry there. It's always darkest before the dawn. It's true. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's the Twilight Zone. And it's right in between there and light. That's the zone. And that's when the shadows come.
Huh.
You start to see the shadows because there's a
Mhm.
little bit of light starts to come onto the horizon after that real dark period, right? And your mind does things to you at that point, just like it does at dusk. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
You've seen it, right? Both of you have
Yep.
been in the woods. You know this. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
especially if you're a hunter and you go out way before dawn like me and Dad used to.
Yeah.
You
Used
every
to fish.
sound in the woods
Yeah.
freaks you out. Every little movement you see out of the corner of your eye freaks you out.
Yeah. I used to fish a lot. So we would get out there and it would be, the sun wasn't up yet, because you're going out there and getting your spot and whatnot.
Mhm.
And we'd also fish into the late night too, because we did catfishing at the time. And man, I'm telling you, there's just something about that. You can look out across the lake and you can swear that you see something out there, that forms out of those shadows.
Mhm.
And is it your mind doing that? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, how
And
much of that is pareidoia and how much of that is something actually moving?
because it's a brilliant camouflage, right?
Yeah.
If you could do it, hide in the shadows.
So when we're looking at this stuff, we try to rule out the emotional aspect because when you start speaking with somebody about these encounters, what is the primary instinct?
Demon.
It's not even the primary feeling.
It's a demon.
The primary instinct.
It's a demon. It's going to drag you down hell. It's a demon. It's going to get you.
Exactly.
No, for real.
They go to
I'm
the
not
most
joking.
evil, terrifying thing that their mind can imagine
Because it's
and
dark.
instantly grab a hold of that.
That's symbology. It's dark.
Yep.
Therefore, it must be evil. Just like the guinea pig story we used to tell. We saw
Exactly.
it. The guinea pig has red eyes. It's an albino guinea pig. For God's sake, it has red eyes. People do too. It doesn't mean they're evil. It just means that they have red eyes. It's genetic. But
And
You
they're
know,
delicious.
symbolically though, that's evil, right?
last time I was at Royal King, they had a whole batch of albino bunnies, and it just made me think of that. I was
Hey,
like,
do
I
you
bet
know
those are
why
gonna
they
sit there forever.
Yeah, that's why they had a batch of them too, because people
Mhm.
would literally leave them setting. I'm not
They
even kidding.
would.
Yeah, it was terrible. I hated to carry albino guinea pigs. They're beautiful, but I hated to carry them because no
We
one.
would specifically request that if they were sending
Yep,
us a white bunny, that it would be a white bunny or leucistic, which is black eyes. And
doesn't matter.
man, if they wouldn't, if they would send us an albino, we knew
Mhm.
this is now
Let's go sit there.
a pet store pet until somebody comes here and just shows mercy upon this poor soul.
Yep. Which fortunately they did.
Yeah.
There's also
That's all.
a false thing that people believe that albino pets don't live as long and they have more health issues and stuff like that. But as far as I know of, that's not true.
They can. It varies. It depends on what kind of species you're dealing with. Like there's certain traits in the genes that are weak
Makes
because
sense.
when you have like a very refined strain of albinism, you have a very refined strain of brother cousins.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
So you do have a degradation, but like it's not like a litany of health issues.
Yeah, but it's symbology again. In
Yeah.
symbology, automatically says if it's got red eyes, it's evil. If it's dark, it's evil. You know, what? Why? Because, most of these encounters, honestly, most of these just shadowy type encounters
Yeah.
literally are, oh, it's out of the corner of my eye. There's a shadow there. I can see it. It's right there because that's what they are. Very few times do you feel threatened. I mean, you might feel a darkness, but is that just you reacting to it?
Right.
I think it was with me back when, we saw that thing down there at the card store in the mall where I worked. That was a common thing. This thing was huge, like, 8 foot or something. I don't know. It's huge. It's big, really big. And it would always give you a cold kind of chill because then again, it shouldn't be there. And there's this absence of light in front of you. So therefore,
Yeah.
yeah, cold chill warranted, I think. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't heard of anyone saying, "Oh yeah, it materialized in the corner of my room and grabbed me and tried to pull me under the bed," like you see in some of these horror movies.
Right.
And I think that's another issue that we're fighting against.
And in reality, we don't know what these are. They overall seem to be like a benign encounter,
Mhm.
but overwhelmingly have a negative connotation with them
Yeah.
just because the reaction and the response is fear.
Mhm. Yep.
It is fear, and it's also isolation
Yeah.
because very few people will talk about this. They'll tell you if they've seen a ghost, possibly, before they'll tell you they've seen a shadow person or a shadow being. Because a ghost, oh well, yeah, that was probably just so and so's ghost. But a shadow, that might have been a demon. They're not saying anything. They're going to run me out of church. I'm not
Right.
kidding. You know that this is true.
Yeah. 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 All of a sudden, you tell somebody you're seeing
Mm.
shadows in your house, and you've got half of the congregation over there spraying oil and shaking up the
Making things
Crisco
way
can,
worse, probably. Yeah,
anointing the house.
yeah, probably
Preaching
making things
tongues.
worse than it ever was
Mhm.
at that point. Honestly, but whatever they are, they seem to have an intelligence about them. Will we all agree with that?
Yo, yeah, I would
Seems
agree.
like it, yeah.
Yeah, because it seems like even if they don't communicate, which they don't seem to communicate, they seem to be aware of when we look at them, and then they
Mhm.
just disappear.
Exactly.
You know,
And when they do that disappearing trick, where do they go?
Yeah.
Do they go back into the shadows? Do they disappear into another dimension? Do they leave this plane of existence, or do they just become invisible to us?
right?
That is really the great mystery with this, because like you had mentioned earlier, almost everybody has seen one of these things or something that could be perceived as one of these things. There are various descriptions. The ones that I've seen are roughly humanoid in shape. and you'll see them fleeting from the corner of your eye. Occasionally, you'll catch one, both eyes dead in front of you, and they make themselves scarce quick. And it's unnerving. Like I'll be honest, it is very unnerving
Mm-hmm.
because
Mhm.
you are usually in somewhere that you typically feel safe in, like your home.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's this sense of violation that has occurred
Mhm.
because now you're no longer alone.
No,
You
have a
are with
shadow creature
another.
that just shows up out of nowhere. He won't show up for some reason. Let's see if I can get him to show up here for
He's
you.
green screened.
I know he shouldn't be because he's not green.
There he
There
is.
he is. Yeah, see, they just. Do you see how he just fades in, fades out? Look, that's what they do.
That's how they do it.
See that?
We
That's
figured
part
it
of
out.
that's
There's
part
a
of
green
next
screen
year's
up here.
presentation right there. You see, what do they do? This is what they do. They just appear. Disappear. I mean, you can't make up.
And
that
it is
kind.
like that quick.
It
like,
really
in
is that
reality. So
fast.
for those of you guys who are listening to the podcast,
Mm.
highly urge you go over to YouTube and watch that visualization.
That was
Rob
an
just
amazing visualization. That just impromptu kind of thing. But for real, you're right. And what's crazy about it is if we really look at, like you said, this is an ancient phenomenon, right? But we really didn't talk about it too much. And the terminologies, all about that, these terminologies that we have today really arose somewhere around 2000-ish or so is what we're kind of pinpointing it down to. Okay, and we can thank coast to coast for that, because at that point apparently there was an interview with a Native American gentleman. What was his name? Does anybody remember his name?
not right off the top of my head.
What was his name? Native American. He was Thunderstrike, but there was another name for him. I can't remember what it was. But either way, he started
It
talking
wasn't
about
Red Crow, was it?
no. So he started talking about this for the first time, and that was in April 12th, 2001. And what happens after that is what is her name? What is her name? Wrote the book. You know what I'm thinking about? The Shadow People book. This is why it's trademarked.
Oh, that's where it became trademarked, was for
Yeah.
a book?
Yeah. I can't
Was
think
there
of
a
her name.
movie deal written for this book or something? Or
Well,
what?
there might be in the future because it's trademarked. So
Yeah.
Heidi Hollis, that's who I'm thinking about. Heidi Hollis. She wrote a book, and I believe it was called The Secret War. Yeah, that's it. The Secret War. The Heavens Speak of the Battle. That was the name of it. And that was the first mention in there of a detailed report of a shadow people registered and Hatman registered phenomena.
Wow.
Yep. So now you know those terms are actually registered, and apparently they were registered a while back. So everyone who uses that, just be mindful how that works.
So Shadow Beings and Hat Thing.
No, shadow people.
No.
And
That's what we have to use now is Shadow
Yes,
Beings and
yes.
Hat Thing.
Yes. Well, if we make something for sellable consumption, that's
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Yes.
How about Fedora Man?
You can do that. Yeah. That's
Yeah. Or just
Indiana
call it the
Jones's
Shadow. I
Ghost.
mean, you guys have so the Shadow is a
Shadow.
perfect example of this. Do you guys remember the old radio show, The
Yep.
Shadow?
The Shadow.
That is
Shadow
a
knows.
perfect example of this not always being an evil thing.
Right.
Because the Shadow, one of his superpowers was literally being able to do what we see these shadow beings do, but to thwart evil.
Yeah. Well, did you guys watch you had to, because I don't know why you wouldn't, but there was a remake of the Twilight Zone back in the 80s. Did any of you guys ever
Yeah.
catch that at any point?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was one of the episodes, it dealt with a shadow being. It was called the Shadow Man. And that was 1985. So we know the concept goes back, right? Because that shadow being lived under the bed, one of those kind of
Yeah.
things. And then we saw Ghost. Ghost used shadow creatures as
It
well,
did.
and it used them very effectively, by the
It
way.
did. And those were for the first time showing up on film, those were fantastic
I'll
and
tell you.
terrifying.
Well, they're terrifying because that's pretty close to what some people have actually described, you know. They just
And
kind of
in
come
their
out of
representation of ghosts, they were evil spirits. They were
they
demonic.
were.
They were bad.
They were. Well, were they though? Were they
Yeah, because they were
bad?
dragging you to the
Were they
bad
bad?
place.
Were they bad? Or were they just
True.
doing their
They were
job?
more of the enforcers.
Right. See, this
Good
is where
point.
we get
Good
right.
point.
So this is where I'm getting at with the whole symbology thing. Yeah, they were bad. If you're getting drugged, you know, yeah, sure, they're bad. But if you're seeing them for a job, they're performing a job or a task. They're just, you know, another pawn, so to speak,
Right. They're just doing
another
what they're told.
cog in the wheel. Oh
Mhm.
crap! I gotta go drag Harry down to hell. Gosh, yeah, all right.
Right.
You know, that's just how it goes.
I was
And
on lunch break.
right, I was on lunch break. I don't want to do this. You know, Floyd, go get this guy. I don't want to do it.
Now we're gonna make this rough.
Yeah, and then all
I'm
of a sudden,
mad.
yeah, and now you have this backstory about these not demons, these misrepresented demons. Everybody thinks I'm a demon, you know. Just tell the
Yeah.
story about the creature that's doing this job, and then all of a sudden you start feeling remorse for him because he has a life. He probably has, like, you know, a whole family of little shadow beings that he has to take care of. I mean, you know, this is the Marvel way and the
Yeah.
Disney way. That's how you do it. You got to tell the story like that. But let's talk about the Hat Man for a bit, because I found some interesting research on it that I have to comment on. First of all, the Hat Man. When was the first time you heard of this phenomenon?
The first time I had heard about it was, and oddly enough, it's why I brought up the old radio show, The Shadow, and the subsequent movie. Somebody had described, and it was on an old like sightings kind of TV show, where they were talking about like ghosts and unexplained phenomena, and they had actually described it like the appearance of what Alec Baldwin in The Shadow was like.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I'd heard about that, you know. And I was watching that, and I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And that year for Halloween, oddly enough, I was the Shadow. I had the little pistols, I had the big wide brim hat, the red bandana around my face. It was great.
Yeah, makes sense. It makes sense.
But yeah, that was the first time that I had heard about that. And you're talking, I think this was third or fourth grade for me, so 1994, roughly.
Okay, but when's the first time you heard of the Shadow Man, the phenomena? It's, you know, this.
Oh, how far back the sightings go back?
Just that you heard of, not how far back they go, but when's the first that you heard of this phenomenon?
Well, that was the first time I heard it. Was 94 for me. That was the first time I had ever heard of it.
Okay, Brandon.
First time I'd ever heard of it was probably about it was close to when we first got our home computer, because that was when I started diving into like online forums about paranormal stuff. So that was like 2002 or 2003.
Mm-hmm.
First time I can remember reading anything about it.
Yeah. And I think the first time I'd heard about it was when someone had posted an actual picture of something, or made a post on our group back in the early day about seeing one of these things. And all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, that's a Hat Man. They started just like this list of people.
Yeah, the thread exploded off that. I remember.
I'm like, what in the world is this? And I thought, well, it's just a shadow being, you know. I mean, I know what a shadow being is, you know, we've done that, but I never heard of this Hat Man type phenomena as being some kind of an actual paranormal phenomena. And started kind of looking into it at that point. But apparently, guys, it has been around since around 2000. That's when they can trace the actual origin to the Hat
to the
Man.
terminology of Hat
To
Man.
the terminology of something like that. But what's really interesting is that one of the possibilities for the Hat Man phenomenon in particular is that it is a commonly associated thing when it comes to sleep paralysis, as well as hallucinogens induced by the recreational use of diphenhydramine. Now, let me explain to you what that is. That is the active ingredient in Benadryl.
Yeah, and Benadryl.
Really?
Now, here's a fun story that no one knows. Another little bit of my past. You put them all together, and you'll have a whole book at some point. But it's gonna cost you about 170 episodes to do that. A lot of time. So, in this little section, I used to have severe allergies, and I do mean severe allergies. I'd say it's because we had when I grew up, we had a little house, out there, and we had natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
Natural gas is absolutely terrible on allergies, just to let you know.
Oh yeah.
And I learned that after I moved out and I could breathe. It was a miracle. But while I was there, it was not. And so I took Benadryl a lot, not recreationally, just to keep, trying to breathe at night. And I can tell you, I wrote some really cool songs while on Benadryl. That's a fact. This is a fact. Probably where I started playing, guitar and writing songs was because I was, taking Benadryl and passing out and going to sleep, because it did that. So here's what it hadn't did ever. Never once, not once, never once did I see a man, a shadow man with a hat in my room, anywhere in my house, anywhere around me. I don't know how much Benadryl you got to take, but apparently I did not take that much because, I did
That's
not see
because
it.
you weren't listening to the right Pink Floyd album.
I assure you, I was listening to the right Pink Floyd album. I assure you. Floyd was a heavy influence contributor, I should say, in the sleep experiment phase that I was also conducting. So I'm sure that when I was trying to relax, I was probably listening to some Dark Side of the Moon. I will guarantee you, I was trying to probably On the Run or something like that. I don't know.
I can
But
tell you a famous story about someone taking hallucinogens and then they saw Hatman.
yeah, I was hoping one of you would touch on this because we're going to talk
Oh.
about ayahuasca now, aren't we?
Yeah, it was the former quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. He's now
Yep.
the quarterback for the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Couple years ago during the off season, he decided to take upon himself to do new age spiritual practices with his ex-girlfriend who was into all that.
Mhm.
And during that process, they went down to Venezuela, I think,
Yes.
and took a spiritual trip on a mountaintop where they partook of ayahuasca pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
And after one of those particular days, he started seeing Hatman. And supposedly, well, he did an interview like a year or so ago and said that ever since he had been seeing Hatman on a regular basis. And of course, everybody made fun of him on the internet and said he was crazy and stuff.
Right.
But
He's not
I
crazy.
saw that and I was alarmed.
He's not crazy. He's
Yeah.
absolutely 100% not crazy. And I don't know if it is a hallucination. I don't think it is. Or if it's one of those things like we talked about before, when something opens up, you're more aware, you can kind of see into that dimension, so to speak,
Right.
or whatever,
Well,
right? Switches
there
on.
was something else that he did too while they were doing ayahuasca that might have unlocked that. Sometimes when they were doing that, they would go into a completely dark and soundproof room. There's a
Sensory
certain name for
deprivation.
that.
So they did
Sensory-
sound deprivation while they were on
Yeah.
this trip.
They did sensory deprivation while they were doing this, is what you're telling me. That's just stupid.
So I think that combination. I don't know if they were on ayahuasca when they were doing it, but it
You
was
don't
part
have
of
to be
that
on anything if
spiritual
you do.
thing they were doing down there.
Yeah. Sensory deprivation. Your mind is open to just about anything. So if you have a little bit of, like, if you're meditating heavily, you don't need any kind of help. If you're meditating and you're in a sensory deprivation chamber, and if it's a real sensory deprivation chamber, that's the ones where you float in, right? Where
Right.
there's no sound, and I don't think they have lights, do they? I don't think they have lights, but you're
I've heard of
just kind
people
of
who've
floating.
supposedly gone crazy in those things.
I won't do them just because I think that it could possibly cause certain memories to come back. And I'm good. I'm good. Thanks.
It does induce panic attacks on
Yeah.
certain people.
Yeah, I'm good.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, so given what you just said, Brandon, that almost hints to again, an intelligent entity of some sort, right?
Mhm.
That's living almost extra dimensional or multidimensional or
Yeah.
somehow able to manipulate our mind. Let's think back. Where have we heard stories like this? Albert K. Bender. I
Yeah.
know some people are like, that's a made up story. Okay, well, look, if he made it up, boy, I tell you, he was a time traveler because he's got some stuff in there that we wouldn't learn about for years and years later, especially those men in black type things that appeared. Now, this is
Right.
interesting.
And we're speaking and calling him from the car outside and then showed up in his house. Yeah.
They also
Moments later.
appeared, well, they appear and they disappear as mists of smoke.
Yeah.
And it smelled like sulfur, if I remember correctly. What's more
Yeah.
interesting?
And that was one of the things that pointed and gave it that semblance to what happened with Flatwoods.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's really interesting about that to me is that we just had what's his name? Kellner come out, right? And he was talking about this new Skinwalker, book that he's done here. And he mentioned, if you watch the interview on Weaponize, he mentioned that there were real MIB and there were fake MIB, and he couldn't explain what the fake MIB were. He couldn't go into where they came from. He just kept saying something like they were part of the phenomena. They were part of the phenomena, and he couldn't go any further than that.
Couldn't or wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Exactly what you're saying. So it kind of hints toward that old, the old belief that some of these things may be ET or extra dimensional or something to that nature, right?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up because Aaron's experience reminds me of in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of groups of hippies who would take LSD and try to communicate with aliens. Jimi Hendrix actually supposedly did that, and he was successful one time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, you've heard the Jimi Hendrix encounter story about the bus,
I
the
have, but go ahead
snowstorm.
and
Yeah.
tell it, just in case people haven't heard it before.
I
I'm
don't
sure there's
remember
plenty
it.
of people in the audience that haven't
I
heard
don't
it.
remember it fully. I was just asking if you've heard it. I
So,
mean, this is part of
yeah,
that.
it was like 1965, like right when the first album came out, and they were
Sounds
touring
right.
America. They were driving through New York State in a little crappy van, and a blizzard came out of nowhere.
That's the one.
And all of a sudden, their van was trapped in the snow, and they were on the verge of freezing to death because their van was almost out of fuel. All of a sudden, they saw these bright lights come out of the sky, and they saw these beings come out of the ship. They stood there for a bit, and all of a sudden, their van fired back up and worked fine, and they were able to sit there long enough to get out of the snow. Yeah, like that.
Yeah,
And
man.
the bandmates of his credited all that to Jimmy taking LSD and trying to talk to aliens for a few years.
Yeah. I mean, okay, we covered this.
Yeah.
Making contact. What do you think they were doing? We went from MK Ultra into this other stuff that they were doing. You don't think that they shared data back and forth? It's like, oh well, this worked for you guys. Well, we're going to give it a shot over here. We're going to try this too with these especially adaptive individuals, and we're going to see if we can get this to work. Well, it's about contact with something, but we don't know if they're aliens, do we? That's the thing. That's our whole thing that we talk about all the time.
Right.
Like, even when you're out in the woods, like, okay, what's out there? I don't know what that is.
Well, when we start looking in, this is another one of those phenomena, similar to the dogman phenomena, that when you begin investigating or you begin an interest or go down the rabbit hole, you will see it. You will have that experience. Yeah, do you guys agree with that?
I would pretty much agree with that. I think that most people, I
If
think
they
some,
haven't already had that experience.
yeah, I think it's a great deal of it has to do with intent. I really think it has to do with intent. It's not just a matter of you going out there as a skeptic and saying, well, show me. That's not how it works. It won't work like that.
No.
It will
Right.
never work like that. But if you go out and you're like, man, I just want to see if this is this even possible? Can this be? And actually talk with some kind of humility, not to it, unless you want to, but more to yourself, and set this intention that, you know, if this is here, I would like to document this. I would like to figure out a way in which to not so much contact, but to prove it, and not prove it to the world, but prove it to yourself. Because you got to prove it to yourself before you can prove it to anyone else. You got to validate it, looking for validation. And I think if you do that enough, yeah, I do believe that you're gonna do something. That's what I'm going to say about that. Yeah, intent. It's got to be real intent, though.
Right.
And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's witchcraft." Is it? Is it?
Right.
Is it? Is it?
Is it
No,
just modern day divination?
What? I don't know. You tell me. What's the difference between that and going out and asking for a sign from God?
That's true.
Yeah. You're playing in the same ball field in a lot of these cases, and
You really are.
you're calling
Something.
You try to make it out like it's the difference between apples and oranges, but it's really not.
Right. And I think that that's one of our biggest issues right now with this whole phenomena. I think that that's where it's going to go. It's where the conversation has to go soon. That's for another day. But I think that that's where the conversation.
Because that's if we went into that, we'd be
complicated.
way over the time allotment.
Yeah, it's going to be complicated, and I think that that's where we're going to be going. I think next year. I think that's where the conversation is starting to go at this point.
Yeah,
and we have to go there. We have to.
I think on the
that.
year-end review, you'll hear us start that road.
Yep. So, we had some people actually respond to put all the questionnaire.
Are you ready to get into some of those witness accounts?
Yeah.
So yesterday, okay, guys, literally yesterday, Ron posted up a question and said, how many of you have encountered a shadow being, Hatman? We're looking for accounts to be shared. Now, the executive producer, Adam Good, he shared one that I'd never heard about before, other than from one other person. And I told her that I was like, that's weird. I've never heard one like that before. But it seems like a shadow person, but that's weird what you're describing. Well, Adam Good has no idea who this person is. However, she did chime in later of seeing an entity that he described as a static man.
Mm-hmm.
He was the first comment, and he described it as the feature of a shadow man, but instead of blackness, it's like static. He said that he knows a few people who've seen the same and hear or read about it, and that there have also been other podcasts that have had witnesses on that describe such an entity.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people call it the glimmer man because it looks like a glimmer, like a glitter, kind of. Is the way they describe it.
Yeah.
So it's out of focus, undefined, like a glitch kind of thing is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, like when you think static, think like, the old TV that.
Well, like the podcast does from time to time.
Yeah, just like the podcast does from time to time. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And that I found really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Because Carly had told me about this story, and I'm gonna I'll tell you hers real quick, but then after that I want to talk about this static creature.
Mm-hmm.
So Carly had described seeing this thing that was static like, and she said that she saw it a lot when she was younger, and then one shadow figure just a few years back. Now this entity was showing up in her room, and she was seeing it for a long time, like this persisted. This was a reoccurring kind of event.
Yeah.
And then Adam, what I understand from Adam is that his is also somewhat of a reoccurring event.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that, guys?
Apples and oranges. I make of it. We're calling things, different names and so forth here. I think that you have to have the switch turned on, so to speak, before you're going to see something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know when the switch was turned on for Carly. I'm pretty sure I can speak on Adam's part and say the switch has definitely been turned on. So I don't know exactly what they're seeing, other than to say that I have theories.
Right.
But
And
that's as far as I can go with that.
the theories about this one, to me, like, this is just me. I have a feeling that those entities, these static-like beings, are not the same as what the shadow beings are. That's just me.
Maybe.
I have ideas of what these static beings are. Something that can tell you what to see, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
That's as far as we'll go on that one.
Yeah. I'm not here to make anyone believe anything, but
Right.
again, I want you to at least look at the evidence that's out there, and follow the evidence, follow the trail, and you'll see that you're not alone. There's a lot of people who have perceived these things. They can appear as beings. They can appear as doors. And I have heard that before too. The doors that's like it's almost like a holodeck type door. It just opens up, and it's in space. It's right there. There it is. And then sometimes something comes out, sometimes it doesn't, and then it just goes back in. If you can do that with a portal, gateway, whatever, then why not? That makes perfect sense. If you're seeing something that's kind of staticky or blurry or not quite right, you're talking about immense gravitational fields in the physical world. If you are perceiving it, there's an essence of physics that we still have to have that's going on here, unless it's completely in your mind. Now, if it's in your mind, that's a whole different story. But there's still some stuff going on, especially with the distortions and whatnot.
Right. That distortion is what kind of stands out to me, I think, with those two accounts. We had another one from Les Odell.
Yeah.
Who's another investigator here in the region. And you guys might recognize that name. He's been in a few STM features. And he does a lot of paranormal investigation and Bigfoot work up in the northern part of the state.
North.
And he said that his experience with one when he was a child was what got him interested in the paranormal. And he does tell about this account.
Yep.
One of two of these accounts in the Mothman Legacy film.
And it's pretty weird.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of our accounts, honestly, is weird, but
yeah, none of them are like, oh, well, that's normal.
But Les's it has a different feel to it than all of our other ones, is what I'm saying. Like the circumstances around it and so forth. And I'm not gonna tell his story. I want go watch it. It's there.
Yeah, go watch it.
It's on Legacy. And it's a good story. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's a good story. I mean,
now we were also provided a photograph.
Yes.
From Lisa Beard, who is always over in the live show with us.
Yes.
And she does paranormal investigations. And it is a very, very interesting picture. The photo, the original photo is taken with an infrared red light.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this figure in the left-hand side of the frame.
What do you make of that?
Well, you know what I think about it? Because when she enhanced and changed the photograph and changed it to black and white, that looks like the static thing that the other two described.
Mm-hmm. It does, doesn't it? Because it's not definite.
It's small in stature as well.
What's interesting is a lot of the shadow people videos that I see that actually look authentic, they do look staticky in the recordings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like sometimes you can see them actually like disappear, come back, disappear, come back.
Yeah. I mean, the only time I ever had a run-in with one that looked, I would say, non-transparent or fuzzy or anything like that, because I never really thought about it. Shadows, to me, they are kind of fuzzy, right? Was
Mhm.
was the dark thing that in the bread factory that I chased,
Mhm.
on the dead end floor. We told that story before.
Yeah.
It's in one of, I don't know, it's in several episodes actually. But you know, this looked like a person though. There wasn't any, oh, that's a ghost. I just thought there's somebody just came on that elevator and someone's messing with our investigation. I'm gonna go figure out what this is. Oh wait, I didn't hear the elevator at all. Crap. So, you know, and then I go around the corner and it's gone. Well, that looked like a person. I mean, to be honest with you, that looked like one of you guys. It was, just as just as flesh and blood, except for it was dark. And there was no
Right.
there was no color other than just dark, but there
Just
wasn't any
void of
fuzzy.
light.
Yeah, just void of light. It was
Yeah, I
just like,
have heard
yeah,
some people say they're like 3-dimensional.
it's totally three-dimensional. This was
Yeah.
this was like one of those morph suits. It was like somebody wearing a
Huh.
black morph suit. That's what it reminded you of.
Yeah.
Something like that. And the movement was just as normal as you or me. Just getting off the elevator and I'm walking. I'm coming around. I'm coming to you guys. And I'm like, I don't know who you are, but let's go, And of course you're not there. But we have the
I've
static
actually,
things.
I've personally seen them in my house on many occasions. One day Emily was on FaceTime with her mom, and her mom saw one walk behind her. It went from our sunroom to our bedroom door, and
Mhm.
she thought it was me. She thought it was my shadow, and I was in here at the time. Definitely wasn't me, and she said it was about my height though, and it just casually just walked toward the bedroom.
Shadow beings,
Yeah.
shadow critters,
Mhm.
whatever we're going to trademark it as. Um,
Yeah, because we're gonna put the
yeah.
this
Put
little
look,
scene mark on it,
yeah, we're going to get a hold
registered
of.
or
Let's get
copywritten.
that registered. Yeah. Come on. Really? So, these shadow things, they definitely seem to be intelligent. Um, it's definitely a thing in research that's been taken a little bit more seriously now.
It is.
Mhm.
I know when we set our cameras up, we look for shadows, we look
Yeah.
for things like that. We have the laser grid. That's what it's for, unless there's cats around.
Yeah. Then they just play with it.
Yeah, and you can't use it.
And so another account was from Amanda Schultz, and she said that she sees them often where she lives.
Mhm,
There is a
mhm.
cemetery close by in the township, but they removed the headstones and put them in a different location, but left the bodies behind.
Oh, that's messed up.
This is always a bad thing.
What?
Never, never anything good comes
Usually
from
the
that.
opposite.
Right?
Yeah, there's never anything good that comes from that.
No.
That's very bad.
So Ron asked a question: what are they doing? Are they just there and gone and done? Is there any kind of action? Do you see them in your peripheral or straight on? She responded saying that they're just there. They usually just cross my driveway, see them both ways, and they just pop up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. What do you
that
do with
one
that?
sounds more like a residual energy kind of haunting.
Mhm.
But again, what are the shadow beings? We don't know. We're just presenting the data. You make up your mind.
Yeah, we could
Um,
we could be looking at two separate things. Yeah, absolutely.
and we had, of course, the Deuster,
Dewey.
and
Yeah.
he's told us before on the live. He's been on the live show and actually mentioned this that he sees them quite regularly in his home.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's even built a few SLS machines
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to kind of capture and detect certain things like that.
Yeah. Someone
It,
just responded again. I just saw the number go up in real time.
Dave Roberts, who's a member of the collective, has seen them 2 times over a 2-week span in 2009. We had another report from Wolves Den Woodworks, which, by the way, if you've not seen their stuff's awesome. They come out and they vend at some of our shows. He said that I've had numerous shadow encounters through my lifetime. Only once could I say a Hatman, only because the similarity of the silhouette. A few years back, I also had an experience with a flying shadow outside my home.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The next one up is from Lisa Kolsch. She says that I've had numerous shadow figures, especially where I work. One of the best ones was at Octagon Hall last September during an investigation. We saw a uh, a shadow fly through the dining room towards the parlor, and then saw a shadow figure run behind the couch in front of the window. That's 1.5 stories up.
Yeah.
So she says again that they had a great time investing there and can't wait to go back. Had a lot of great experiences. Even my husband admitted that it was good, and he's a skeptic. Not so much now after that trip.
Always good when you get someone who, doesn't believe something and they see it for themselves, and then they have to rationalize, what that
Yeah,
means.
that makes me think of something. One group of people who are not afraid to admit that they see things are people who work in hospitals, because they
Yeah.
see weird stuff like that all the time. They see the shadow people. They'll see full blown apparitions.
Yep.
They'll see stuff flying around a room where someone died recently. All kinds of weird stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
A lot of them, they practice the old superstitious beliefs too. Like they'll open windows when people have died
Yep.
recently.
Right.
They'll
Yep.
change the bed sheets for sickly people because there's an old myth that it helps people pass quicker, something like that. But yeah, they do. They practice all those old beliefs, and they fully believe that it works.
Yeah.
Now, I saved two of the more descriptive ones. Um, I think we have enough time to at least
Oh
read
yeah.
one of them.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay.
And
And
we'll save one for well, we read one Thursday.
yeah, we read one yesterday. Do you want to do the Hat Man tonight or
Yeah.
tomorrow?
Let's do the Hat Man, I think.
So the Hat Man. I used to live in
Mhm.
Moundsville, West Virginia as a kid in an old house that had a pretty messed up history.
Mhm.
According to the rumor, he had killed himself in the basement and had a ton of cats, which he'd kill and bury in the walls in the basement where he was supposed to have shot himself.
Man.
Now, that the sink that captured and retained all of the cat remains and blood and such uh, was left there during, you know, the existence of this home. So it was one of the features that was left untouched. They left the sink, but remodeling removed the cat remains. Anyway, that's who I thought the Shadow Man was. It was always seen crossing the doorway of my kitchen from the front room, where it'd walk by where the door used to be for the back door to the porch. He was tall and had a rain poncho and on a wide brim hat, and also looked like he wore rain boots. We'd always walk right to left as if coming into the house. Immediately behind him was always a small shadow figure that looked like a small dog. Maybe it was a cat. I don't know. It just crossed the doorway, and then on occasions it would stop and stand in the doorway in front of the room. The rooms were roughly 20 feet apart, and probably six of my friends who'd stay in my sister's, my mom and dad, along with numerous other family members, would tell us that they don't or they won't stay or didn't like it because of the guy in the poncho with the hat and the dog that walks around in the kitchen scared them. That house, I believe, had a lot of bad in it, and some followed me, or some of that bad stuff we did in the woods followed me, which you'll hear about that yesterday on the live. I'm not sure, but after those encounters, I dealt with stuff like that a lot. Now it doesn't bug me, but it can be creepy.
Yeah, man. So that to me sounds like a residual haunting,
Yeah.
especially the part where the door's not there anymore, but it
Right.
is, in their frame of reference, it's there, right?
Yep.
So that that sounds like a residual type haunting.
And then the dog in the kitchen.
Yeah.
The way that these people would experience the dog in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well,
that's like how we experience the ghost cat.
Yeah, ghost cat. It's a great example.
You know,
I mean, I haven't seen your ghost cat, but I have seen a ghost cat. We were at Country Roads cabin. We were up there several years ago. There's a cabin there. I don't know which one it is. I want to say for some reason it's the Mountaineer, but I don't know for sure. So don't quote me on that. But it's one of those cabins, the bigger ones, and we were there, and I swear we both saw a cat, and we have cats, so it was like, you know, you get up in the middle of the night, you see a cat, and it's like you don't think about it for a second. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not home. That shouldn't be here.
Right.
That's not supposed to be there. And you know, the next morning, you know, you compare notes. Both of you saw this thing. It's like, okay, that's weird. And then it gets weirder because when you read the guest book, you hear all these people saying, there's a ghost cat. I saw a cat. I saw a cat. It's in there. And that's what it is. It's dark. It's a cat. It looks just like a cat, whatever it is. So
it's an ovnik.
Maybe it is. I'm more apt to believe that at this point than a ghost cat.
Right.
But
same thing as the ghost possum.
Oh gosh.
No, Brandon, the ghost possum is something
we don't talk about the ghost
different.
possum.
It's completely different. Yeah, you guys just gonna have to go back and watch a few episodes, figure out what we're talking
there's
about.
A whole
if you do
thing.
that, because there's a whole mythology and origin story there that you just want to hear. Trust me. What do we make of things like that? I mean, people, that's one thing, but
You're right.
when we get into animals, how's that work?
Is that some sort of a time slip? Could it be that you've got two realities bleeding over on top of one another? Or are we experiencing leftover residual energy that was constant? Because with what Michael was seeing, it was always coming into the home.
Yeah.
You know, never saw it really leaving. It was all the sightings was this guy coming into the home, cats coming into the home, maybe a dog, or dog running around in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was repetitive. The same kind of thing over and over and over. And I agree with you. It seems like a residual haunting. But when we start getting into things like what we experienced at the deep end, when we start getting into things like what you experienced at the bread factory, and we look into some of this phenomena, I think we're dealing with something where we are experiencing these bleeds of reality. Where you have one dimension, the veil is super thin, so to speak, just using veil as a loose terminology here. But in that area, things can pass through. Things bleed through. You're breaking Newtonian physics and you're occupying the same space at the same time.
Yeah, just like that car that tries to get over at the same time you do when you get on the interstate.
Right.
You know, it don't work.
It doesn't.
I mean, they usually have Ohio license plates.
But hey, Ohio. No. Ohio likes us. They may not like you now.
They were the first people to really start inviting us to come speak at their shows.
Forget that mess, Ohio. Sorry about that. Buckeyes.
Forgive him.
Forgive him. So
learn how to drive.
Michigan sucks.
Yeah, definitely.
Michigan sucks. There.
Well, there's the end of that.
Now you got all the college sports fans from West Virginia and Ohio like, yeah, we like this guy.
Okay. So anyway, my thing is it there, or is it just we're perceiving that energy?
Right.
We're defining that energy, and all that we can come up with is that, you know, blank of whatever, you know. It's a human form. Oh, it's a dog form. That energy obviously was a dog or a human. And then our belief system gets in the way, and it's like, oh my God, it's a demon.
Right.
I
I
mean,
think maybe they take these forms because they're the simplest form and they require the less energy.
I don't know,
Not
but I'm
full-blown
thinking they don't
3D
take the
image.
form at all. I'm thinking that that's just the way that we, you know,
Perceive it.
yeah. So what if energy, just it's the speculation. But what if energy, everything vibrates at a different frequency? We know this. Your frequency is different than mine, et cetera, et cetera. What if those vibrations are like a fingerprint as well? What if they're like an identification, and there's something that at some point, you become able to actually interpret what that data is?
Hmm.
Okay. So each one of those little things, it's like an RFID, right? Think of it like that. Like it's an RFID. So when you see, apparition X04, whatever, it's exactly your brain goes to, oh, that has to be a humanoid form. Oh, that looks like that's what this is. But then when you see a different vibration, X0760, for example, oh, that's a dog form. That's a dog. You're literally creating that. And isn't that the premise of the whole holographic universe thing, the
Yeah.
quantum physics, that it doesn't exist unless you know what it is to exist, so to speak.
Right.
And that's what it is. You have to define the universe. So, are we dealing with something as monumental as that? That's the question. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, if you talk to some spiritualists, they believe that it actually is pretty easy to turn your brain on to those things.
Mhm.
It's supposedly it's as easy as like, say you're thinking about, oh, I really want to buy a blue car. Suddenly you start seeing blue cars all over the road and you start
It's
noticing blue
true,
cars
Brandon.
everywhere. It's
That's
because you
100%
flipped your
true.
Because
mind
your
over to
perception.
that.
It's 100% true, Brandon. That's manifestation is what they call it, but it's reality. And that's why it's very important to be careful what you think, especially when
Mhm.
out in the woods, as we've had this conversation multiple times. And I was on another board. There was a thing on there about was it a Ouija board or something? I don't know if you guys saw that or not. And
I've saw a lot of talk about Ouija
yeah,
boards in the last few weeks, like
yeah.
from various pages.
Well,
And it
it's
was, I don't
Halloween.
know why all this. I mean, it's
It's
Halloween, I
Halloween. It's
guess, but
Halloween.
that's
But they were like, doing the whole, it's cursed thing, don't touch it, blah blah. We used to go by that too, but yeah, exactly.
the Ouija
But
board is hungry.
just like Brandon just said.
Beans.
But here's the thing, right? If you really get into that and you really look at it, you have to look at the core basis of what is going on there. All right. In reality, what's going on there is intent.
Mhm.
You have to want it to work. It doesn't matter if it's a Ouija board or it's a candle or it's a pair of nail clippers. If I focus on this becomes my Ouija board. It's the same thing. It's what I'm getting at. It's the intent, right? So I don't think that board, for example, I used to buy into it too. I saw it. I mean, I saw weird stuff with the board, but I don't necessarily believe that it's any more evil than anything else that's out there. I think it's the person that is involved, and it's the mentality. It's the conception of creation of that whatever you're trying to bring about. Oh, it can possess you. No, it can't. But could it lead to a possession? Oh, quite possibly. Especially if you were stupid enough to sit there and say, come into my, whatever you're doing, right? And these kids are stupid. They do that stuff, right,
Yeah,
Joe? I mean, this is
they do.
party stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's why the Ouija board in particular is dangerous, in my opinion. It's not that it's dangerous on its own, it's dangerous because of the group mentality of the people who play around with it because it's a
And
game.
and when you start dealing with this kind of phenomena, okay, this, yes, it is divination, is for that is what it is. And you're working, you have people who 9 times out of 10 don't know the rules, so to speak. And that's where some of this stuff can get dangerous. You don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
And you do the thing because you saw somebody else do it or you were told to do it by somebody else and you're doing it. And then suddenly you've opened up something you don't know how to shut. That's when things, any of these things,
Mhm.
whether it is a Ouija board,
A can of
cards,
tuna.
scraying in a
Yep.
mirror,
Anything.
or anything, you don't know what you're opening up. That's the terrifying part.
But that's the bottom line too. You don't know what
You-
you're opening up.
You don't know what's going to come through.
Mm-mm.
You know, you can say, "Oh, I want to summon so and so." That's not how it works, guys.
One in one hand, etc., etc.
Right.
You're not in control. You're not in charge.
It always
Yeah.
bugs me whenever I watch one of those shows, those ghost hunting shows, and they'll go to, let's say, like the penitentiary here, and like, oh, we're going to take out a Ouija board and just start fiddling with it, even though it's for TV.
Yeah.
They still could cause real damage.
Yeah. Well, here's we do ITC, instrumental transcommunication. Some
Yeah.
would argue that's the exact same thing.
Right.
The difference is
You're just not using a planchette.
the difference is we're not inviting anything into us to do that.
Right.
When you are doing your the Ouija board, that's what you're supposedly doing, right? You have to invite something to do it, come to blah blah blah.
And then you move the
Exactly. I don't want anything in me making me do anything. Okay.
Right.
So you're not gonna get that. That's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna give you the ability to do that. This is what terrifies me about the Estes method. And it's why I will not implement that in the collective in any of our research. I know there are people who want to do it, and I commend you. Go ahead. But I don't want to
But I'm not allowed.
No, you're not going to do it because I don't know what that is. I don't think it's a demon, don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily know what it is either. And
Right.
if you're going to go knocking on that door, I would prefer to be invited rather than to go knocking on, a so-called extra dimensional or extraterrestrial door, because let's be real, that could be what we're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, there's a difference between demons and negative entities out there.
Yeah.
Demons and negative
Yeah.
entities are two separate things.
Yeah, I deal with negative entities all the time. I mean, they're people, right?
Well,
No, for real.
you can actually have
Why not?
someone who's really terrible in life, and when they die, they're a terrible, terrible ghost to deal with, and they'll do horrible things to people, sort
Who
of like
knows?
what a demonic entity would do, but they're not a demon.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, right? I mean, you are what you are.
Well, you remember, well, this is a highly controversial case, but that case over in England where that little girl was it started off with that poltergeist phenomenon in their townhouse.
Yeah.
And then she eventually got possessed by the human spirit.
You kind of remember
What was that? The infield haunting.
Yeah.
Minefields. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I think we actually covered that on one of the spectaculars years ago.
I think that a lot of this is our problem, however. I think a lot of the fear, a lot of the belief is generated by Hollywood, is generated by books, it's generated by mythology and mythos.
And the unknown.
And the unknown, because we are afraid of the unknown. We have nothing but fear itself, right? It's a fact to this day that is still true, and fear sells. We've proved that. Look, we don't go back to the beginning, but that's true. And if fear sells, we can guarantee they're just going to be chalking up more and more of this stuff and feeding it to you because, hey, gotta get them adrenochrome. See what I did there? Because that sells.
It does. You're right. And it sells thousands.
Yes. Thousands. Oh,
And
hundreds, thousands, bud. Hundreds.
If we really, really wanted to, we could push that kind of stuff. But that's not what we do here. What we do here is real data.
I could have a Porsche. No, forget that. I don't want a Porsche. I hate Porsches. I could have a DeLorean. Yes.
Yeah.
In about 2 weeks if we wanted to really do that kind of crap. But that's not what
If we
do.
spun this stuff, if we took and put a spin on the research and we made it out to be something scary, something that would keep you up at night.
Oh, and it's 100% this.
Yeah. Spoken definites, fully given into the Sith.
Yeah, exactly. No.
Like we could have it. We would have already been there years ago. It would have been a pop-off sensation.
Yeah, well, that ain't what you got. So sorry, weirdos and weirdettes. You got us, and we're here to burst some bubbles sometimes, and sometimes it ain't popular.
And that's what happens sometimes. I mean, but it needs popped.
Sometimes, and sometimes it just makes you think. So,
I have a Hatman story that one of my friends told me forever ago. If you guys want to hear that one.
Well, we're running short on time right now. Do you think you want to hold it for tomorrow?
Yeah, I could do it tomorrow.
Or not tomorrow,
Or
but Thursday?
yesterday.
Time travel. God.
Yeah.
Tune in
Yeah.
yesterday to hear this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, tune in yesterday. Yeah, share that one on the live.
Okay.
Yeah. So apparently what's going to happen is, because I'm not going to edit this, it's just a really good episode. Brandon
You can
is
edit
going.
that little
No,
30-second
no,
snip.
this is great. I'm not going to edit this. This is gold. What's wrong with you? You look for stuff like this. You can't plan stuff like that or write it out.
True.
It's
True.
hilarious. Anyway, so yeah, go back and watch last night's episode of the live. You'll see it. There'll be a link right down there, somewhere down there. I don't know where it's at, but it'll be down there, and you know they'll guide you if you can't find it. But yeah. So anyway, I'm sure it was a fascinating story.
It was riveting.
It was,
Riveting.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
riveting.
amazing, absolutely amazing. So anyway, final closing thoughts. Let's just talk about I can't call them shadow things.
Shadow beings.
Okay, shadow beings.
Yes.
Okay, shadow beings. Real. This is going to be an easy one. Real, in your opinion, or some kind of just hallucination?
Brandon, you go first. What do you think?
Oh, definitely real, 100%.
Okay, Joseph.
All right. So, if you remember back to the first season, I'm sticking with what I said. That these entities have been around just as long, if not longer, than we have.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a good chance that this darkness, this shadow, this lack, this void of light could be an echo of something else. It could be something that is existing concurrent with us. It could be why we have that innate fear of the dark. Something that could reach out and grab you. Something that's watching, keeping you paranoid. We all have that. Nobody's immune to it. It's part of primal instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had it since the dawn of humanity. I 100% think that this phenomena is actually happening. There's way too much proof beyond stories. There's video, there's pictures, there's EMF readings, there's radiation readings, there's all these different instruments, scientific instrumentation that's been used to detect these things. These were anomalies that were also studied on Skinwalker Ranch by Bigelow Aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
So if Big Daddy B was studying this, you best believe there was a reason to be.
I absolutely
And that's where I'm
concur.
going to leave it.
I absolutely concur, and I think that is probably the best way to say it. I think that there's a good chance that we are dealing with an intelligence. You've heard this multi-million times before. It is either extra dimensional or it is. No, I'm going to say it's either extra dimensional or it is because that's it. I don't know what the other thing is. See, we don't have words for that. So it's either an extra dimensional being or I simply don't know. I don't think it's hallucination. That's what I'm getting at. You see what I did there? It's not a hallucination.
Yeah, not a hallucination.
No, it's not a hallucination. It could be your interpretation of this extra dimensional being, yes, but it is not a hallucination. So, in other words, if you guys have seen, experienced, witnessed, been harassed by, tried to have car insurance sold to you by a shadow being or a hat thingy, please reach out to us and let us know because we want to hear the story. We want to hear your side of this data so we can add it into the pool and see how close it comes. I mean, like I said, I don't think anyone's nuts who's seen it because, well, first of all, I've seen one. I mean, I could say I'm not nuts, but that doesn't mean anything to anyone. So, I mean, most of you guys think I'm nuts. So what do I care?
Well, I think that pretty much sums that up. It's an affirmative on all three cases here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I got something that we haven't done in a while. We used to do it every week, but we've gotten away from it a little bit. And I wanted to give you all a rundown of where our listenership is coming from and what our global footprint looks like. We have gained downloadership in Asia. So we're climbing in Asia. We're climbing in Australia. We actually have a fairly decent listening base in Australia now. Africa, our man from Libya is missing, so he's going to have to get caught up. Europe is representing because Germany, and we know who that is.
Yep.
And hopefully we're going to see you in a couple weeks. So, and then obviously United States and Canada. It's a big, the major.
So what country do we need to take next? That's
what country do we need to take next?
Yeah, this is like our version of Stratego.
Right now, because our buddy from Libya,
okay,
we have a 0% footprint in Africa now.
Okay, so Africa.
So we've got to get Africa, and we have to get green. I think it's Iceland.
Iceland.
All right, so next week we're doing a special on Algerian cryptids. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right. Now, when we're looking at cities, when we're looking at just the cities, our top downloads from cities, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is coming in at number 1, which this lineup has completely changed since the last time we did this a few weeks back. The tie for number 2 is New York, New York.
New York, New York?
Yes. Wow. New York is
if we can make it there.
St. Charles, Illinois.
We can make it anywhere.
We can.
I've heard that.
And we did it our way.
We did do it our way.
Now, following up in number 3, these folks are just getting ready for us. This is they're priming themselves to get ready for CryptidCon.
Gotta be Kentucky.
For the last big hurrah of the year. Lexington, Kentucky.
Go Kentucky. That's our people right there.
Is blowing it up. And they're sitting in the number 3 seat. And we're excited to get out there and hang out with you guys.
We are native West Virginians, but
yeah,
I have that is our second home.
It really is. Kentucky, and it has been since before Wild and Weird.
Yes, they have always accepted us.
Yeah.
For some reason, the Buckeye State has always accepted us, and I don't know why, but they have always been good to us over there. And it's always a lot of fun to get back out there on the road and get over to
it really
in the show in Kentucky. I like to do that because they're good people. Not saying anyone else isn't. I'm just saying that Kentucky has always showed us the love.
Well, let's give Kentucky some love and say, let's go Wildcats.
Rawr.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can't wait to get out there with you guys next month. It's in middle of November. It's the week before Thanksgiving. We will be at CryptidCon.
It's going to be a blast. It's going to be fun.
Going to be an absolute blast. We're actually speaking this year. We're on the lineup. And Lyle Blackburn has now joined the roster. Unfortunately, Dr. Meldrum has had some health complications at one of his previous events and is sitting this one out to recoup. So he won't be there this year, but we're going to have the great team still yet. It's going to be there speaking, and it's an honor to be on the lineup there this year.
It's going to be fun. That's all I know. I'm going to have a lot of fun.
It'll be an absolute blast. It always is.
And we have a brand new print coming your way. That's going to be debuted there exclusively. And we might have a second print that's going to be coming your way.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, maybe.
Are we going to get Star Jelly?
You just had to do that, didn't you?
Oh, man. Well, I can't wait. It's going to be a blast. And
so, yeah. Let's... Go ahead. Take it home. It's
going to be a great time. If you guys have had sightings of any kind of strange phenomena, Hatman, Shadow Beings, UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it, you can send those over to wildandweirdwv.com. Click on the Report a Sighting tab. And once you've done that, you'll have a little questionnaire that you'll go fill out. And that questionnaire will then email us the specifics of your encounter. And if you're up for an investigation, we'll do what we can to make it happen. And then if you yourself have a story that you would like to hear read on Wild and Weird Radio, you can send that over to wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. We'll read the story over the air. We call those the Tales of the Wild and Weird. We used to do those kind of frequently back in the day. We haven't been doing them recently, but you guys get on the ball. Shoot us some emails, wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. Give us your stories. We'll share them here on the radio. We'll let the whole world hear them. And then do not forget, join us every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with our live show over on YouTube. It's an absolute ball. We have the best time. It is the highlight of all of our weeks.
Oh, yeah.
We have an amazing group of people who support the show, who stand up every single week, and who have kept it free for everybody for eons and eons to come. And remember also to like, share, and subscribe to all of our stuff. Go find us over on Instagram, find us over on Twitter, find us obviously in YouTube land, and subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, anytime we present new content, you're alerted. It sends you a message to your phone. It's like, hey, these goofballs put more stuff up. Go watch it. You're going to like it. Then remember, we have an amazing team that supports this show. They're just absolutely fantastic. We cannot thank them enough. They're some of the greatest people on the planet, and they are considered family to us, every single one of them. And you can check that out scrolling on YouTube right now if you're over there watching. You see it on the bottom of the screen. Those folks are what keep it rolling. They're what's keeping the embers burning on the long nights. It's what's keeping everything fueled and making sure that we're able to provide the absolute best content possible to you guys every single week. Not just once, but twice a week for free.
Oh, yeah.
Then if you guys, just want to get in contact with us, just do it. Reach out. We're here. We're available. We're accessible. We give us some time. It might be we'll have to find the messages from time to time, but we'll get with you. We promise. So until next time, remember, if you're standing in a dark room and you see a weird shadow standing in the doorway, check the floor for space jelly first. Just so you know. Stay wild and weird, everybody.